I feel like you're missing.
I just asked a question. I just asked you a question.
I would agree with you. That doesn't prove.
Okay.
So we're talking about people like in South America.
We're talking about millions of people, billions of people.
Yeah, but
well, why hasn't
it? In faraway tribes.
If this is proof, if proof that God's behind it, why hasn't it happened? You said Jesus said it would make it happen. Why hasn't it happened?
Well,
you say 107 billion, and since more people worship Jesus now, that's evidence.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay,
so let me finish.
Okay.
So I'm saying what we have here is an extraordinary, by exactly these exact odds that you're talking about, we have an extraordinary anomaly. We have one human being who walked this earth from the last, billions of years, and however long humans have been on the earth. Out of 107 billion, this one human being is worshipped by billions and called Lord and God. I'm saying that is an extraordinary anomaly, and so I'm saying that's something that historians would go, wow, that kind of is amazing. If Jesus achieved that extraordinary anomaly, 1 out of 107 billion on that point, maybe he achieved another extraordinary anomaly. Maybe he rose from the dead.
Okay. Are you really using that as a historical argument?
I'm using it as an argument for the resurrection, whatever you want to call it.
What kind of argument would you call it?
Well, what's the problem with the argument?
But isn't it an extraordinary anomaly that Jesus is worshipped by billions? How is a crucified man...
No, it's not an anomaly at all. I wrote an entire book explaining how it happened.
Okay, how does a crucified man in his mid-30s, how is he worshipped by billions of people today? I mean, you don't think that's not an extraordinary anomaly?
It's not an anomaly. It's amazing.
By definition, mathematics, 1 out of 107 billion. But I'll let you finish.
Why is that proof that he was raised from the dead? It's proof that people are convinced he was raised from the dead.
I said it's a good argument against this idea that you were making that, you're telling me only one person out of all the 107 billion rose from the dead? A historian can't say that. That's not good enough evidence. Well, here's another point on that same person that is an extraordinary anomaly.
You can't explain that one. You can explain why there are so many billions of Christians in the world. It's not hard to explain, without a miraculous explanation. So why? I don't understand why you're arguing this.
But this single individual has had this kind of impact.
Yes, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
So it's normal for crucified men in the ancient world that are Jews to be worshipped by billions and lay the foundations of Western civilization. This is normal.
You are not listening to me.
Okay.
The resurrection of Jesus would be a miracle of God. You can't use the fact that many people became convinced of that miracle to prove that the miracle happened. Okay. You can only use that to show that people were convinced it happened. There are other reasons people get convinced by things, other than the fact that God intervened in history.
Okay, but don't you see the point that if Jesus did rise from the dead, that would be a pretty good answer to why he has had this extraordinary anomaly impact on the world.
I don't think it has any relevance to it.
No relevance.
No relevance.
Okay.
I mean,
that's fine.
Okay, let me put it like this, okay?
Okay.
So, the Mormon Church, back to the Mormons for a second. The early Christian movement, from the days of Paul up to when Constantine converted, okay, it grew, if you actually just crunch the numbers, like you start out, just say in Paul's day, I would say before, say right after the resurrection, there are like 20 people, okay, who believe in it. You got the 11 disciples, you got a handful, say there's 20 people.
20 to 3 billion, yeah.
So by the time you get to Constantine, by the time he converts, there's probably 5 or 6 million Christians in the world. So if you crunch the growth rate, like, what would it take to get from 20 to 5 or 6 million at that time? It's about 30% every decade, okay? And so the question is, does that require a miracle or not, or can you explain it by natural grounds? And the Mormon Church has grown that rate since it was founded by Joseph Smith. Now, I wouldn't want to say that Mormonism is necessarily true because it grew at that rate, or that the angel Moroni necessarily revealed the golden because it grew at that rate. If Christianity had continued to grow at that rate after Constantine, by the end of the 4th century, there would have been more Christians than humans in the world. So the rate of growth, or the number of people who come to believe in something, is not an indication of the miraculous beginnings of the faith.
But I didn't say that. I'm asking you, you did not give me an extraordinary anomaly for Mormonism. I gave you an extraordinary anomaly for Jesus of Nazareth.
The extraordinary anomaly is that the angel Moroni showed Joseph Smith these plates.
No, but
that's never happened before.
But no
one
out
of 107 billion people in the world, that has never happened to anybody.
We're back to the same point. Nobody outside of those people believed that.
Either do the
Moroni
billions
has
of people
not
who
appeared
believe in
to anyone
Jesus.
else.
The people who believe in Jesus' resurrection are Christians.
Well, no. Skeptics and unbelievers all around the world have been convinced by the
They've
resurrection
converted,
of Jesus.
and they've been converted to Mormonism.
Oh, well, in Utah, yeah.
No, you're not hearing me again.
I know.
30%
But
growth
they're
rate.
working off, on that point, they're working off Christian capital. I mean, it's a cult of Christianity. So
Well,
they're
you
working
could
off
argue
Christian
that
capital.
Christianity is working off of Jewish capital.
I mean, can
Well,
we?
but Judaism didn't spread.
I
by
know we've
evangelism.
kind of wandered into this final bedrock fact, and I just want you to establish it, though, just for the listening and watching audience, Justin. Just talk about this, why you believe that the rise of Christianity, or as you could put it, the rise of the Nazarenes, constitutes not just, a fact of history, but something that points towards the truth of the resurrection.
Well, I think, one point that I wanted to make that centers around that is, again, Jesus. I mean, again, we're dealing with a person, not just anybody that rose from the dead, but the most influential, the most sung about, the most painted, the most written about, great moral teacher, the most compassionate, the most extraordinary figure, who's ever lived. And so I think that's an important point to make, that this is who we're saying rose from the dead, right? We're not just saying any old Joe rose from the dead. And so again, I think that's why Jesus keeps tipping the boxes for all these extraordinary anomalies.
I'm not getting it.
And so,
So are you saying it's a combination of things? It's that they claimed this unprecedented claim in that Jewish culture that a crucified Messiah had been raised from the dead, the fact that people truly believed they'd seen that, the fact that it happened to someone who has had this extraordinary influence on culture, human rights, everything else, and that movement now comprises, easily a third of the world's population or whatever it is.
but let me, and this will
but
help
go
you,
ahead.
Bart. This will help your confusion on this. So when it comes to this fourth bedrock fact, there's many lines of arguments, but let me give you one. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. So we know what Jesus in the New Testament, before he died, and as the risen Jesus, I know you wouldn't think that he said these things as the risen Jesus, but we know what he wanted. Okay, we know what, let's say, this apparition, this supernatural coming back from the dead human being wanted. He wanted the gospel to go to all nations. He said, make disciples of all nations. He said, you will begin here in Jerusalem, you'll go to Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And from Jerusalem, the ends of the earth, interesting, I mean, I haven't done the exact coordinates, but maybe Papua New Guinea would be like something like the other side of the world. And interestingly, Papua New Guinea has over 90% of people that profess Christianity. I just find that amazing that it was said by Jesus in the first century on the Mount of Olives that this message will go to all nations. It's made it to the other side of the world, but 195 nations, how many of those have Christians in them? So what you'll call this a happy accident, I presume, but I would say, wow, what Jesus wanted, what the raised Jesus wanted, actually came to fruition. And of course, to have that accomplished, it took dominating the Roman Empire. It took dominating Western civilization. It took all that. Wow. And this looks to me like a raised Jesus, Lord of the world, directing his church. What say you?
What Justin is doing here sounds persuasive at first, but it doesn't hold up when you look at history and logic. The fact that billions of people believe something does not make it true. We have clear examples of that. Islam has nearly 2 billion followers. Mormonism grew rapidly after Joseph Smith claimed an angel showed him golden plates. Growth shows belief, not truth. Bart Ehrman's point is simple and supported by historians. You can't use belief in a miracle as proof that the miracle happened. That's circular reasoning. There are natural explanations for Christianity's growth. The Roman Empire played a huge role. After Constantine the Great converted in the 4th century, Christianity spread through political power, not just evidence. Even the Bible shows belief doesn't equal truth. In Exodus, people believed the golden calf was divine. In Matthew 24:24, Jesus warns that many will be deceived.
This is your view of a historical argument for the resurrection. Is that what you're saying? Is that this is evidence?
I'm saying this is a clear counterfactual. The Christian movement didn't have to survive. It could have not gone to the ends of the earth. It could have stayed in one part of the world the whole 2,000 years, the last 2,000 years.
No, I understand as a Christian that this is very important to you.
No, but you don't have to be a Christian to
I'm
believe
just asking if you see this as evidence that Jesus was raised from the dead. Was this the sort of thing that you would publish in a historical journal as an argument that Jesus was resurrected. If it's something else, it's fine. If it's your
I'm saying it's
theological belief,
one of the lines of evidence.
I'm asking you,
that
is this
Jesus-
the sort of thing you would publish in a historical journal as an evidence for what happened to Jesus' body?
I would definitely publish it as something that is a line of evidence for the raised Jesus and the fact that he's Lord of the world and still directing his
Okay,
church.
so here's my view. This is an argument that would be convincing to people who are already convinced. It's not an argument that will carry zero weight with anybody who's not convinced, because it's a theological argument. And I have no problems with theological arguments because they have their place. The mistake is thinking that
it's a historical fact, though. It's not a theological argument. Jesus made this claim in the New
Okay,
Testament.
let me finish.
Okay.
Finish what you're saying,
Yeah,
and then
I'm
you'll let me
saying-
say something.
Yeah, we will.
I'm saying that the argument that Christianity succeeded is not a historical argument for what happened to Jesus' body. The question of the resurrection is what happened to Jesus' body. Was it brought back to life? Now, I'm assuming you don't think it was brought back to life. You could, it's easy to argue, by the way, that one of the things that happened, and what most people today would say, is that it was a near-death experience, right? He died, and so people saw him, and so that'd be another explanation. You could argue that. You could argue most anything, but the fact that billions of people today are convinced, when you go out on your mission in Jordan and you convince somebody, okay, suppose you convince an entire household and suppose they convince 100 people that Jesus was raised from the dead. How does the fact that those 100 people now believe show what happened to Jesus' body?
Okay, I feel like you're missing my argument here, 'cause
I
it's
just
not
asked a question. I
it's
just
not
asked you a
succeeding.
question. I asked you a question.
I would agree with you. That doesn't prove.
Okay. So
That's
if
not what I'm saying.
convincing people doesn't prove it,
Yeah.
then the fact so many people have been convinced does not prove it.
It's not that so many people. It's not necessarily that so many people has been convinced. It's that we know what the raised Jesus desired, and what he desired, we now have 20/20 hindsight, and we can say, look, what he desired has happened. And so let me give you an example. If the writing in Mormons, if Moroni had said, I want the Mormon message to eventually dominate America and America to be completely Mormon, okay? And let's say we're sitting at a table in some future time and all of America was Mormon.
Yes.
It was completely Mormon.
Yes.
I would say, yeah, you know what? That looks like some evidence that Moroni might have had, there may be something to him.
Okay.
So in the same way.
Let's pursue that then.
So
let's pursue
in
it.
the same way, let me finish. In the same way, if Jesus says, my gospel will go to all nations,
Okay.
and now 2,000 years later, it has,
Yeah.
and we could think of 100, thousands of counterfactuals where it didn't have to do that.
Yes.
The Christian movement could have died and
can I-
disappeared.
and one of the things you point out is that
I
there
think
were
that's
other
a
Jewish
very important point.
messianic movements which did peter out, where when the Messiah got killed, it stopped. But your point is this was the only one in which the leader said it will go to the ends of the earth, and it actually did.
I mean,
and therefore
exactly.
that's some
as you
kind
know,
of
as
Who-
you
who
know,
else
I
said
don't think
their message would go to
I
the ends of
absolutely
the
don't
earth?
think Jesus said that. Of course, it's in the gospel, so we could have that argument too.
But whoever said that, just to make the point, whoever said that, it still was said in the context of Christianity
Look,
being what, thousands of people?
look,
So it's
it is-
still amazing claim and fulfillment.
I'm sorry, this is not a historical argument for the resurrection. You can't claim that the rate of growth of religion is an indication of its
Not rate
truthfulness.
of growth. It's fulfilling a specific claim that Jesus made. How do you not see that?
So respond to that specific then.
Jesus
Bart.
never
What do you
made
think?
this claim.
Okay.
Okay, Luke. Then whoever wrote Luke and whoever wrote Acts and whoever wrote Matthew, they made the claim. Did
No.
they prove right? Were they
I think
proved
you've
right?
read my books. You know I don't think that.
Oh, okay. No. I'm saying whoever wrote Matthew, I'm assuming your anonymous authorship on these books. I'm saying whoever wrote them, they made these claims. According to you, they put them on the lips of Jesus. But when they made
As
these
you know
claims,
from my books, that's never what I've said.
Just explain what
Matthew
what your
didn't make
perspective is.
this up. Matthew's living in a community that's living 40, 50, 60 years after Jesus.
Okay.
There have been storytellers about Jesus all along.
Okay, so he got that. But my point, somebody made this claim. And it ended up on the lips of Jesus. I think Jesus made the claim. But according to you, somebody made the claim. But whoever made the claim in the first century, somehow 2,000 years later, it's been fulfilled.
Can I ask you?
Who is that guy? We got to find him. He's the genius.
Okay, we're going to go to a break.
I just don't think.
After Bart's responded.
I would
Okay.
just like to know if if it was to go to the entire world, why hasn't the whole world? I don't think this is a historical argument at all. This is a theological argument, which I'm happy to talk with you if you want to talk theology instead of history. But if that is your theology, that it had to go to the whole world, why, in your theological view, hasn't the whole world converted?
Well, I think many do reject the claims of the gospel, and I think many have not heard the claims of the gospel.
Why? If it was supposed to go to the whole world, why hasn't it gone to the whole world?
Well, that's the thing. It has. That's my point.
No, it hasn't. You just said many people hadn't heard.
Well, I'm saying, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Based on the evidence of the last 2,000 years, do you think it will ultimately go to all? We're talking about tribes that just haven't heard. I mean, we're talking about people like in South America.
We're talking about millions of people, billions of people haven't heard.
But
well, why hasn't
in faraway tribes?
If this is proof, if proof that God's behind it, why hasn't it happened? You said Jesus said it would make it happen. Why hasn't it happened?
Well, let's stick with what he said. He said he's going to return, right? So will it happen before he returns? What do you think? Based on the last 2,000 years of evidence?
I think the answer is no.
Okay.
This is where Justin really starts to lose the argument, because he keeps trying to turn belief into evidence, and that just doesn't work. The whole question is simple. What actually happened to Jesus' body? Did he come back to life or not? And instead of answering that, he keeps pointing to how far Christianity spread, or what Jesus supposedly said would happen. That's not history. That's theology. And even the sources he's relying on aren't as solid as he's making them sound. The Gospels were written decades later, around 40 to 70 years after Jesus, by people who weren't eyewitnesses. That's the consensus among scholars, including Bart Ehrman. So now we're taking later stories, passed down through communities, and treating them like direct evidence of a miracle. Then there's the claim that the message would go to the whole world. But it hasn't. Billions of people either don't believe it or follow completely different religions. So that fulfilled prophecy idea doesn't even match reality. And the biggest issue, people believing something doesn't make it true. We know from psychology that people can have powerful experiences after someone dies. Grief can cause visions, what researchers call bereavement hallucinations. People genuinely feel like they've seen someone who passed away. That's a known human experience. No miracle required.
But yeah, the fact that Jesus is appearing all over the world, almost every nation, for the last 2,000 years, to Hindus, to Buddhists, to Muslims, to Jews, and they're converting. I don't know of any other faith that could make such a claim. So this is I think, a unique phenomenon. There's even I think Bart's aware of this because he referenced Philip Wiebe's book, Visions of Jesus, which I'm had enjoyed reading in preparation for my book, and he talks about how there's even a separate study in the psychological understanding of the paranormal and of these type of things called Christic visions, because they're so common and there's so many. This is happening so often, and so that's what I would say is it's really truly a unique phenomenon with, again, the person of Jesus. So this is just another line of evidence to add to all these others that we've been talking about that I think suggests this Jesus rose from the dead.
Okay. Bart.
Well, I don't really have anything to say about it. I mean,
I'm pretty sure you do, Bart.
Oh no, I really don't. I mean, because I don't think it's any evidence of anything. I mean,
okay.
People have dreams about all sorts of things. It doesn't mean the thing is real. I mean, so I'm sorry, I've never thought about it, studied it. I read this book, and it was a good book. It was very weird, very strange. I don't believe it really happened. As you know, the film disappeared.
I don't. But he interviewed. Just so you know, he's talking about a film that they believe they saw Jesus. I don't buy that either.
Okay.
But there was 32 individuals he interviewed that gave people from Canada, people from Australia, people from America that gave powerful. I was convinced that they had
the fact
seen
people
the
have
Jesus.
Dreams and visions of something like
Well,
Christ.
it's not true that it's not true that it only happens in Christianity, of course.
Okay. What other?
Well, it's very
places
famous
do we
in the
see
ancient world. I mean, people in one of the great healing gods of the Greeks was Asclepius. And the way the healing rituals worked is that there was a shrine of Asclepius. He was a divine being, a Greek divine being who could heal people. And people who had a problem, they had breast cancer, or they had a maimed limb, or they had cancer, they had whatever they had. They were blind. They'd go to an Asclepium, it was called Asclepion, and it would the way it worked is you would go to sleep in there. And you'd spend the night, and Asclepius would come to the person and heal them. And we have abundant testimony, hundreds of testimonies that this worked. And we actually have a number of these Asclepia that have been dug up by archaeologists that they're actually pretty interesting because they would make representations of the body part that got healed. And so you'd have their walls covered with breasts and penises and arms and eyes and ears, depending on what. And so it was all based on a dream cult. And Asclepius isn't the only one. We have all sorts of cults involving Zeus, for example. And so throughout history, of course, there have been lots of cults that claim that they're, the person is being dreamed of and healing them.
Oh, that is fascinating, history. I've learned a lot about Asclepius, but I just have to ask you, Bart, who has Asclepius appeared to lately?
Just last night, I had a really interesting dream. and it proves that Asclepius was raised from the dead because I dreamed about it.
Let me ask you this. If people from all over the world started thinking that Asclepius was appearing to them, or Apollonius of Tyana, or Moroni, or any of them, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't you go, wow, there may be something
that would be
to
something.
This.
Yeah, that would be something.
But it's happening with Jesus.
I don't think so.
No, it's a fact that it's happening.
No, it's not.
It's just whether or not he's actually appearing to them.
There are 8 billion people in the world. The people who've never heard of Jesus do not have dreams of him.
No, one of the examples in my book is Samuel Morris, a guy from Libya, and he heard the voice of Jesus. He went to Taylor. I don't know if you heard of Taylor University. They have a statue for him. They dedicated a whole hall for him. He had never heard of Jesus. He heard the voice of Jesus. He survived this tribal attack. It's an amazing story. I mean, again,
it's amazing. Great.
Like Pincus Lapide, you should look into these.
Great.
These are powerful.
Yeah.
But there definitely are people who have never heard of Jesus, and they have these visions. They have these dreams. And
why do you think it doesn't? So again, I don't think this is a historical argument, but just out of curiosity, why do you think it's taken so long? And why don't you think Jesus just appears to everybody?
Well, because I agree with Blaise Pascal. He said, God isn't interested, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, God isn't interested in just convincing the intellect. He wants to incline the will.
Yeah,
so I think he wants to humble us. So I think he wants people to not just be convinced. He could easily do that. He could do something wild in the sky and convince all of us.
But if he could break the laws of physics, and
he could do that at any point. But I think the God of the Bible, what I think in Jesus, they want us to humble ourselves.
Okay.
They want us. Jesus wants us to come to him and seek him with all our heart, and he'll respond.
So why does he show up to some people then? Why does he show up to some people, not others?
I don't, I can't say exactly why Jesus appears to this person or not, but I would say maybe it's because that person has more open heart and they're responding in some way, kind of like Cornelius in Acts. He's seeking, the true God, and what happens?
So the fact that
an angel appears to Peter, and Peter brings the gospel to Cornelius.
So people with an open heart have dreams of Jesus, and then they convert, and people don't. And so, okay. That's fine. If that's your theological view, that's fine. It's a religious point of view.
I didn't say I know for sure, but I'm just saying it's likely that it would. You know very well from the Bible that depending on someone's response in their heart, if they're seeking or if they're hardening their heart, a lot of times that depends on their interaction and how God is.
That's fine. I mean, it's a religious view, and it's fine. It's not the sort of view that a historian would use to argue for something that happened in the past.
Where I think you are trying to tie it to something historical, Justin, is that for you, it seems to be that this happens in today's world, let's say, for Christianity. People from other worldviews aren't having visions of the Prophet Muhammad here in the UK. They're not having visions of...
I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I'll say it this way. People of their own religions, they do have visions. But across the way, that doesn't happen. And it's amazing. I mean, you can even go to Google and search. I've done it in YouTube.
Oh, well, Google's the one I trust, especially the internet. I think, especially if you have a Wikipedia page, I'm there.
But you can't find, like Christians are not having visions of Muhammad and Krishna and Buddha.
Okay.
Buddhists are not having visions of Krishna.
But you're saying Muslims are having visions of
but Muslims
Jesus.
And here's the amazing thing: Muslims aren't having visions of Joseph Smith, and then saying, "Oh, Mormonism's true." That's never happened.
I don't know if it's true or not, and I think that's incredible. I think it's I think it's literally incredible, but I think it's incredible.
I'm going to send my book. You're going to endorse this book.
No, I am not going to endorse it. I will, yeah. If you promise to let me put my own blurb on the back, I will definitely write an endorsement.
Maybe
obviously, but you feel...
I believe in freedom of speech, but not on my books.
This people are seeing Jesus argument is honestly one of the weakest points he's made. People have visions in every religion. Ancient Greeks saw Asclepius healing them in dreams. Hindus see Krishna. Muslims report spiritual experiences tied to Islam. That's not proof, that's a pattern. And science already explains this. The brain creates visions, especially during stress, trauma, or strong belief. People don't see random figures. They see what they already know. So when someone claims they saw Jesus, that tells you about their environment, not reality. And then Justin tries to make it sound unique. It's not. He's just ignoring every other religion that reports the exact same thing. If this were actually true, if Jesus was real and appearing to people, you wouldn't get scattered, inconsistent stories. You'd get clear, global, undeniable evidence. Instead, you get personal experiences shaped by belief. That's not proof of a resurrection. That's how the human brain works. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think belief, growth, and personal experiences are enough to prove something like the resurrection? Or do you think we need actual evidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read all of them. And if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is part 2 of the debate, so if you really want to understand both sides deeper, go watch the full conversation as well.